Okay, before we get started on how to use the machines with some of the processes, what we'd like to do is to talk to you about some of the workings with inside of the machine. The machine is made of two parts: the lid of the press, the base of the press. The actual lid of the press is basically two layers of glass. The top layer of glass is a toughened layer of glass, so that if you do want to use it as a workbench when you're not using the machine, you can do. But please make sure that you put a piece of board on there, nothing too heavy, and it's always good to put a cutting mat on there. And please never use a glass cutter actually on top of the actual press. The bottom layer of glass is where the heat comes from, and you'll notice that it's at 87 at the moment, but it's preset at 90 degrees. So this piece of glass is actually reading 90 degrees centigrade, which is approximately 195 degrees Fahrenheit. So just be very careful, don't touch the glass, it will burn you. So just be aware that that is a very hot item. In the base of the press, what you have in the base of the press is basically a rubber diaphragm with a grey seal that works all the way around the edge. A little hole in the bottom at the back right hand corner that's connected to the vacuum pump. So when you close the lid, the actual grey seal seals all the air inside the press. You switch the pump on, the air is extracted from within inside the press. The diaphragm then, because there's a vacuum created within inside, forces itself up onto the glass. So this is where you get your heat, and this is where you get your pressure from. You'll also notice in the base of the press we've got a product called Grey Vacufoam. Grey Vacufoam is designed for two reasons. Here, when we're dry mounting, which is the next process that we'll show you, it's actually being used as a breather blanket, so it's on the base of the press. The second usage, which we'll show you later, is when you're heat sealing, and it's designed, our heat seal films are pre-pierced, so they come with holes in them. The idea here is that you put this on top of the heat seal film, the air travels out through the heat seal film, out through the foam and out into the atmosphere. So it's got two uses: breather blanket and on the top as a heat for the heat seal film. We have here as well clear silicone release film. Clear silicone release film is a double-sided product. Nothing will stick to this either side. So again, here when we're dry mounting, it goes on top of the print, so that if we do have any overhang of dry mounting tissue, it's not going to stick to the lid of the press. When we're heat sealing, we'll basically flip both of these over so that the silicone release film is on the bottom and the heat seal film, the foam is on the top. The idea then is, with heat seal film, the adhesive is facing downwards, so again, it's not going to stick to the base of the press. With the silicone release film, just be a little bit careful when you're using it. We're just going to set it up for the dry mounting process that we'll show you next. So we're just going to roll it back. Just be a little bit careful because it can sometimes kink. So we're just going to roll it back on itself, just being nice and gentle with it so that we're ready for when we're sticking a picture in. The first thing that we'd like to show you is basic dry mounting. So it's sticking a picture. This time, in this instance, we're using just a movie poster, mounting this down onto a piece of card that we've got here. This is a piece of white display board that we sell, 2mm or 2000 micron thick. We're going to be just sticking this picture down onto this board. This time we're going to be using a product called a dry mounting tissue, which is called either Unimount or Trimount. It's a double-sided adhesive, a heat-activated double-sided adhesive that will stick the picture down onto the board. It's exactly the same on both sides, and the idea is that it melts and bonds the two surfaces together. So we're going to stick this picture down onto card. First, before we do that, we'll just explain some of the boards that you can and can't use in the press. Here we've got a selection of some of the substrates that we're going to use. This is the 2000 micron or 2mm thick card that we're going to use. Very smooth on both sides. It's a very good product to mount down onto. We've also, in the press, you can also use, this is foam core, foam-centered board. It's a very lightweight board. There are some issues with using foam-centered board in the vacuum press, which we'll actually cover in a later chapter when we're actually mounting a picture down onto foam-centered board. But you have to be aware that the edge is actually crushed down very easily. So we'll explain that in a bit further detail. Here we've also got, this is 12mm or about ½ inch thick MDF, which we can mount a picture down onto as well. And again, we're going to show you that later on in the DVD. Here we've got 3mm Masonite or dual-faced hardboard. Again, this is a nice product to mount your picture down onto. Again, all four of these products, these substrates can be mounted down using the dry mounting tissue. Okay, two that we want to avoid, and I know picture framers especially can use this type of product. This is a fluted or corrugated type cardboard, and you can probably actually see already that there's ridges within the surface of the board. If you're mounting a picture down onto this, especially in the vacuum press where you're giving it a lot of pressure over the surface area at any one time, this will actually show through and it'll make your picture look like it's ridged and ribbed. So avoid that. Also, the other one to avoid is a product called Foamex. Foamex is a expanded rigid PVC. This is a 5mm thick board. It's a very hard substrate. You'll identify it quite easily because it's normally got a cling film to protect the surface of the board. Not ideal for vacuum presses. We would recommend that this is done through one of our jet mounters through the roller laminator system. So 2 to avoid, but plenty other ones to choose from. Okay, so we want to stick this picture down onto the board. So what we've got here, this is the dry mounting tissue. We'll just move our poster out of the way. Roll the sheet, or roll the dry mounting tissue out. We can lay our poster onto it. Okay. Then trim. You can notice here I'm leaving about 1 centimetre or ½ an inch all the way around the print. It just makes life a little bit easier when you're actually sticking it down onto the board, because we're going to trim all the board up. The board is a lot larger than the dry mounting tissue and the poster, so we can trim it all up in one go afterwards. So we're now going to mount the picture down onto this 2mm card or 2000 micron white display board. Using our tack rag, actually we'll just give this a little bit of a wipe over just to make sure that there's no dust or dirt on the substrate. Remember that when you're mounting and laminating, dust is your mortal enemy. So always make sure that everything's nice and clean. We can position the board, even just make sure, turning the print over, just make sure that the back of the print is nice and clean. Okay. Position it, centrally line it up so that the board, the tissue and then the print is going down in that order. Over to the press. Into the press, slide it underneath the silicone, making sure that it's within the confines of the press. Making sure that the poster is within the actual dry mounting tissue area. We can then roll back our silicone release film, making sure that it covers the dry mounting tissue. Close the lid of the press. Pop the latches on and then press the start button. You'll notice that we've actually got the timer set at 2 minutes and 20 seconds. The 20 seconds is basically to allow the time that it's going to take for the actual press to pull pressure, to extract all the air, and you'll hear the pump changes sound now, and we're just pretty much at 2 minutes. Okay, so that's going to take, for this type of poster on this type of substrate, using a Unimount or Trimount dry mounting tissue, it's going to take approximately 2 minutes in the press. So you can see that the actual cycle, the machine is coming to the end of its cycle. It's counting down 23, 22. So we've got this preset. At the end of, when it drops down to 0, you'll notice that the pump will switch itself off. This will reset itself back then to 2 minutes and 20 seconds. We can then undo the latches, take the work out. So pump switches itself off, as you can see, 2 minutes 20 seconds. Air is allowed back into the press so that it's going to be easy when we undo the latches, just to lift the lid of the press up. Just be a little bit careful when you're lifting it up that the silicone doesn't come up with it. That has a tendency then sometimes to crease the silicone release film, so the better that you can protect it yourself, the longer it will last. So again, we're just going to roll it back, get the silicone release film out of the way. So we'll lift it out, get it onto a flat surface, onto your workbench, put it onto a cutting mat. We'll actually absorb the heat, so it takes the heat out of the board quite quickly and allows it to cool nice and flat. All you need to do then is just trim it out and it's ready for framing.